That start?
Yes.
Yeah, well done.
Okay, sorry, fastest finger, Andrea, sorry.
Lucy, I don't know what you...
Faster finger, yeah.
Well, I'm not sure I've migrated properly, so we'll sort that out later.
Are you in Wellington House, Kay? Yeah, whereabouts?
I'm on the 3rd floor. I've got one of them little quiet rooms.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I thought, because I'm a bit loud, so I thought I'd, get excited. So I thought I'll sit in here. It's lovely as well. It's very sunny.
I was going to say,
why my glasses are going dark.
The
So
sun is shining on you. I know where you are, in one of those back rooms at the back. Yes.
Yeah, 315.
Yes.
Where are you?
I'm in 2.1.
Oh, there you are.
Indeed.
He might come and join one of these later.
Where are you?
6.6.
All the way at the top.
We're going to get chucked down 10:30.
Yeah.
So.
Brilliant.
Shall we make a start anyway? I'm hoping that, I think I'm up to present. In fact, I've got the agenda here. I think.
Yeah, don't worry.
So hopefully Hayley will join us by 10:30. But yeah, if you want to kickstart, Andrew and
Can I kick off? Yeah, because Conscious got an hour, haven't we? So, and we've got a lot to rattle through. So, warm welcome to everybody, and lovely to see you all. For those who don't know me, I'm Andrea Lewis. I'm Chief Nurse for the southeast of England, and I'm co-chairing this agenda for today, along with Kay Wilson, who I will get to introduce herself in a minute. But I can't believe actually it's been 6 months since we had our last, our week of webinars. And we made a pledge at the end of that week that we would come back together 6 months later, and hence why we're here today. But just reflecting back on that week, I mean, it was so well received, and I think and the engagement was absolutely fabulous, and the series of presentations we had just really generated a lot of energy around this agenda, and really gave us a remit as to what we wanted to do going forward, and we're really keen to keep that momentum going, hence why we've got the webinar today. So really delighted that you're all here. There's a couple of things I just wanted to again highlight why this is really, really important, and has definitely come up the profile on the NHS agenda. But climate change is a massive public health issue, and it's recognised as being that. It causes 13 million deaths around the world each year. And from an NHS perspective, we contribute around 4% of England's emissions. And the Health and Care Act in 2022 placed a duty on NHS organisations to consider climate change in their operations and to make it a key aspect of everything that they do, to ensure that we could embed that net zero in what we do. And again, that's illustrated in the NHS long-term plan, which sets out a commitment to deliver on this as well. But from a nursing and midwifery perspective, again, we've made a pledge to do key aspects around this. And as a workforce, as a key workforce, there's so much that we can do here, not just for ourselves as staff, but it's for our patients and the communities and the environment. And championing the sustainability agenda is really, really important, and particularly within now Duncan is our new Chief Nursing Officer for England. The new strategy for nursing and midwifery for England will be released in due course. That's just getting refined now. Obviously, a lot of work was done with Ruth May on that, but had to be paused due to obviously clearly the election, etc. But sustainability is a key feature within that strategy. But for us as a profession, as nurses and midwives, this is about maximising our leadership around this agenda. It's expanding our scope of what we can achieve and the influence we can have in what we do on a day-to-day basis, but also what we can do within our teams, within our networks, within the systems, within the region and within organisations. And there's so much we can what's exciting about this is actually what the opportunities are around it. And, there's so much we can do in growing and nurturing our capacity, our capability, our proficiency and our knowledge base in all of this. And we did see that 6 months ago in the week of webinars that we had. There was so much good practice. Well, I say good practice, actually, it was excellent practice that was illustrated, and lots of fabulous learning for people to take from that. So it doesn't feel like we're completely at the foothills. We're definitely at the starting blocks, but it's really keen to keep that momentum and to keep the journey going on this, to get down to that net zero ambition. So I'm going to leave it there, really. I just wanted to say, just really chuffed to bits that I'm here today chairing this with Kay. Really excited about the agenda, and hopefully all of you have got that. Some really good sessions we've got planned for today, very much a follow on from our 6 months ago. But I'm going to bring in Kay now to because she's made some pledges actually, and clearly is dressed in the beautiful green colour. I didn't do that today, Kay. I feel really bad for not dressing in green, but you're doing it for us. So anyway, over to Kay. Introduce yourself, Kay. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Kay Wilson, and I'm the Regional Chief Midwife. I'm sitting in a sunny room, and I've got reactor-like glasses. So it's not that I'm sitting on a beach somewhere in the sunshine. It's just that the sun's shining on me beautifully here. I think from my point of view, just echoing what Andrea said, the session that we had 6 months ago, that full week of it, I think it started a bit of a sea change. And certainly within maternity and neonatal, it started to generate those conversations, even down to we made a commitment in our team that for every single thing we were going to put through, any business case, any plan, we had to bring in that sustainability. And what difference is this going to make for our planet? What is this going to do there? And I think it's those sorts of things that start to make us consider it not just the financial elements, not just the safety elements, but this is about our future. And as I said back then, maternity and neonatal, you're dealing with new babies, new life. We need to make sure that we're doing something that is going to help our planet survive, and survive in a good way. And also this plays into the equity piece as well. So often we've set up programs and things that have been central, used a lot of resources, but are not necessarily getting to those other people who perhaps need them. I think one of the things, not entirely sure how carbon low it is, but Books have got a fabulous maternity bus that they share with the vaccination team, and that's got those solar panels on the roof. It's things like that. We're trying to look at different ways of doing things that will also attract and help and really support our communities that need it. When I started nursing 39 years ago, just get that in quickly, there was a move. Back then, we didn't have a lot of single-use items. There was a real move to that. And what's interesting now is that move away from it again is to stay. What are we doing? Simple things like how many packs have we got in? How many swabs have we got in packs? Do we need all of those? So it's really looking at that waste, trying to look at how we can be efficient. And taking it into our own lives. I think that's one of the other things, because if we start to make that just something that we do and we think about, it will start to follow that it's coming through. My pledge, and I told Andrea that last week, someone introduced me to Vinted online, and of course I love the fact that, I'm from the north, I've always been tight with my money, but it was second-hand gear. Now it's called pre-loved. It sounds fabulous. So my commitment was, other than personal items of wear, I'm only going to buy pre-loved. That's it, because then at least I'm not contributing to that. Now, I'm not saying everyone has to do that, but that was what I've set out to do. And it's getting those ideas in. So speaking to the teams out there, it's becoming something we're talking about a lot more. In maternity, we've got the hideous amount of use of Entonox. That is one of those massive contributors that already we're now starting to look at, because it's impacting other areas. So I think for the next 6 months, it's let's not take our foot off the gas. Let's keep it on and let's hope that in March next year, we can really say some other projects that have come on. What are our commitments? How are we actually going to make this happen? But I'm delighted to be here. Really looking forward to hearing more. And marvellous, everyone. Go green. Back to you, Andrea.
Brilliant, 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 brilliant. Thank you, Kay. And I bet everyone's now getting their Vinted app on their phone after that. It's sort of it's actually a very good app. But I'm just going to bring in Kate and Lucy, because I know there's just a couple of things that you know, is there anything you want to just update on following the 6 months ago and bringing us to today? So shall I go to Kate first, then Lucy?
Yeah, well, I'm about to do a presentation, but it has been so lovely to sort of keep this momentum going and to get back in touch after 6 months. I think we really enjoyed sorting out the March event. It was such a wild week, and I'm going to show the agenda in my presentation, and just what varied and interesting presentations we had was really fantastic. Lucy, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, just another big thanks then, and to have Rod and Emma on the call as well today, because from the national team, they've really been looking at how we can link in the regional work with the agenda and all be doing as much as we can for the planetary health. So I'm really excited that I'm going to have some hours to dedicate to this once a month. This is going to be new, that I can be supporting and see where we can get to for the next 6 months. So I also feel like I need to say that it's also Ask About Asthma campaign week this week, and that's something that sits in my portfolio in the Children's Transformation team. And there are 4 asks this week about Ask About Asthma campaign. It's about improving asthma for young people. And the 4 asks are: get an asthma action plan in place, understand how to use your inhalers properly, get an asthma review. But the 4th one is ask about the impact of outdoor and indoor air pollution, as we know it has a direct impact on asthma. So I'll put a link in the chat box for anyone that's interested in some of the events that are happening this week. And I'm really excited to be here and hear the speakers today. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you,
brilliant. Thank you both. Well, I think that teases up really nicely, doesn't it, now to going into our first item on the agenda. So Kate, I'm going to hand over to you for your presentation, and you take us through this. So thank you.
No problem at all, thanks. I'll just share my slides quickly. I'm going to try and play a video, although this never seems to work for me at the end, so I just need to make sure I'm sharing the right thing. There we go. Okay, can everyone see that? Yeah, fab. Thank you. So yeah, great to be here again, and thank you all for coming, and a huge thank you to Andrew and Kay for their continuing endorsement of this programme. Yeah, I guess it's going to be really. I wanted to share what's happening regionally and nationally in sustainability, because I think my aim for this presentation is to highlight just how varied the programme is. No day is ever the same. You go from meeting to meeting talking about completely different areas, and hopefully this presentation will give you a bit of a flavour of that. Just to get some context in, so as Andrea said, the NHS causes around 4 or 5% of the UK's carbon emissions, and we're by far the biggest contributor from the public sector at about 40%. We've got the 2nd largest fleet in the UK after the Royal Mail, and by contributing such a significant percentage of emissions, we're both at the forefront of dealing with climate change whilst also making it worse. So we need to take action, and it's so positive that we are doing so. Some clinicians even argue that without us being so proactive, we're directly going against the pledge to do no harm. So it's a big topic, it's a big agenda. And so back in 2019 and 2020, the NHS declared a climate emergency. And I'm pretty sure everyone remembers there was something else pretty big happening in around that same time. But despite that, there was a recognition of the importance of this agenda. And we published the first strategy in 2020 on exactly how we would deliver this net zero national health service. And since then, a lot has happened. You know, in the same year that we put this pledge into legislation, we also had every trust and integrated care system create and publish a green plan, which detailed how every organisation was going to achieve this at a local level. And we're just about to start the process of renewing those again. In 2024, so the beginning of the year, we announced that the Association of Anaesthetists and the Royal College of Anaesthetists, along with the NHS England, announced the decommissioning of desflurane in routine practice. So this was the first clinical decision to ever be made for purely environmental reasons. In other sort of big news, we know that our estates make up a large percentage of our direct emissions, and we've made huge strides in decommissioning this, and that's what one of the videos are at the end of my presentation. As part of this, the NHS has gained £1 billion from the public sector decarbonisation scheme to completely decarbonise emissions of our estates, reducing reliance on fossil fuels and moving to more energy efficient and renewable sources. So a lot's happened. And why is this important to nurses and midwives? I could talk a lot about this, and I think everyone on the call will be sort of very aligned to this agenda and thinking in the same way. But there's key things that we want to pick up here. You know, nurses and midwives are really trusted messengers. We talk to patients all the time, and we can talk to them about preventative agendas, keeping healthy, keeping out of hospital. There's lots of overlap between inequalities and sustainability, you know, environmental inequalities and health inequalities, where we can work together on both those big agendas. Nurses and midwives are often best placed in hospitals to deal with resource management, optimising the use of various products and working efficiently. As Kay mentioned, and I'm going to go into this in a bit more detail later, the midwives in particular are at a prime position to look at the impacts of air quality and on a vulnerable population, and pregnant women are vulnerable to bad air quality. And our healthcare staff exposure to nitrous oxide is something that we can't ignore anymore. So there's lots of overlap between sort of day-to-day efficiencies and sustainable and a holistic sustainable healthcare system. And I very much look at it from a holistic point of view. You know, when you think about sustainable healthcare, you've got to consider the triple bottom line, which is looking at the cost, care and carbon. And when we nail those three, which sounds much easier than it is in reality, then we've got a truly sustainable healthcare system. As I mentioned already, I just thought it was good to reflect on what we did back in March. As I said, the variation of this programme was fantastic. It was a really, really exciting week. So we had everything from over the week, from talking to having a talk from Global Action Plan about air quality, looking at food waste in UHS. We had Health Innovation Networks come and join us. We had presentations on a reduction of excessive use of gloves. So really lots and lots of things that we can look at. The National Nursing Directorate gave us £10,000 each for this project, and the money in the South East has gone towards investing in our nurses and midwives for training. We've put the money towards the Centre for Sustainable Healthcare, which offer specialist training for clinicians, and we really want to invest in our nurses and midwives and sustainability enthusiasts to really follow that passion. We're lucky enough to have Sadie Sullivan, who's coming back today to give us an update on the training programme that she talked to us about for the CYP Day as well. So yeah, it was such a positive week and such enthusiastic audience and brilliant presenters. And now, as I've mentioned, sustainable healthcare spans sort of every corner of the NHS that you can imagine, from operational elements such as estates, what we buy, through to clinical and patient engagement, transforming the way that we care for people to ensure that it's as low carbon as possible. That's got lots of overlaps with existing programmes such as the Digital First Agenda, Get It Right First Time, prevention, social prescribing, all these sorts of things. When thinking about what we buy, it's not only some of the single-use items that are awful for the planet, using plastics that will stay for hundreds of thousands of years, but also looking at through the supply chain at where they come from. We've identified links with modern slavery, and which of course is absolutely unacceptable. And the government and the NHS have made very clear public pledges to cut all ties with modern slavery associations, which is way trickier than you can imagine when you go so far back down the supply chain. But efforts to eliminate modern slavery are really closely tied in with efforts to make our supply chain more sustainable. So there's lots of overlaps with lots of projects going on here, and certain things that are tied that you might not think. We're really heavily reliant on research and innovation, so we don't actually know exactly how we're going to achieve true carbon neutrality yet. It's a really new and emerging area with new innovations and solutions being created daily. Links, it's a real opportunity to link with our local universities, and in the southeast we're really lucky to have universities like Oxford University. Reading is one of the leading universities for climate change, and in Surrey there's the Institute of Sustainability. So it's a really, really exciting area to work in, and the NHS is world leading in this space, which is really humbling. This means we're at the forefront of finding solutions, and I think it's a really lovely thing to think the NHS as a whole, as a whole organisation, does not shy away from these ginormous problems. We unpick them, we trial them, we get our greatest minds to work on them, and work together to make solutions, which is just fantastic. And this image, by the way, is from the Greener NHS Futures site. So I'll put a link in the chat to that, but I really recommend joining it. They've got fantastic resources on there, really active discussion forum, lots of case studies and news updates as well. So that's nationally, and I wanted to give a slide about what I'm doing regionally as well. I'm not expecting you to read every element of this, but you know, from a quick glance, I hope you can see that the ambition in the southeast is big. I'm trying to concentrate on areas that will have the biggest impact, supporting trusts and organisations to recognise where there are co-benefits as well. Obviously, one of the big co-benefits that we're looking towards is how we can save money as well as carbon. We know that longer term investments in green solutions will save money, but they are longer term, and it's a bit of a hard sell at the moment. So investing in elements such as the public sector decarbonisation scheme, support for trusts to access external funding is pretty high on the agenda. Collaborating with the Recovery and Sustainability Board to identify what procurement opportunities will save money, particularly when we start scaling up these really good areas of best practice and pilots. We've got fantastic things happening within the region as well. So Kent and Medway are currently trialling hemp reusable caps, which are cheaper than single use, they're carbon negative, they're naturally antimicrobial, they wick away sweat, they're comfortable, and they're the most fast growing plant, one of the top fast growing plants on the planet. So yeah, I'll be sharing the slides afterwards, but if there's anything that resonates with you on this page, or anything that you think you'd be interested in finding out more information on, or anything that you think is happening in your trust that resonates here, then I want you to reach out and please have a chat with me about it. On the right hand side, there's a big engagement piece happening as well. So we've got monthly newsletters happening. We're going to start a wider regional network soon. As I've mentioned, we're doing a green plan refresh as well. And one of the big things that we're going to do this year is a regional roadshow. So we're going to start this next month, actually, and I'll talk about this in the next slide, actually. So, yeah, as I mentioned, we're going to be visiting 4 hospitals next month. So that's Ashford and St Peter's, Oxford Health, East Kent and Hampshire hospitals, where we're going to be setting up for the day. Having a table, talking to clinicians, engaging with people who walk through the door, as well as sitting down with execs and estates and procurement and whoever wants to talk to us, really. After this 4 sort of pilot sites, we're going to sort of fine tune and get out on the road again after winter. So I'm really, really excited to get on the road with this. The aims of the roadshow will be about, as I mentioned, engaging clinicians, raising awareness of sustainable healthcare, both at a local level, working with the sustainability teams on the ground for this, and also at a regional and national level. We've got the opportunities here to educate, run workshops, as I said, even engage with patients who come through the door on this agenda. And we want to start showcasing and highlighting the fantastic work that's already happening there. We know that clinical engagement is going to be absolutely crucial for this agenda. You know, as I've mentioned, clinicians have such influence on patients and patient care. We need to get leadership sort of more aware of what we're doing, and it ultimately will improve health outcomes as well. We've got a really big focus on nitrous oxide this year, which is good. So we know that nitrous oxide is nearly 300 times more potent than carbon dioxide in terms of global warming potential. We know that acute exposure can cause immediate symptoms like headaches, dizziness and nausea. Chronic exposure is even worse. It can lead to reproductive health issues, neurological disorders and vitamin B12 deficiency. We know that our manifold pipes have been leaking quite substantially in some cases, which is obviously a complete waste in terms of carbon, but also waste in terms of money and then the significant health risks that are associated. So we've got a national toolkit coming out very shortly that will give advice about moving to either portable cylinder usage or what they call a lean method of sort of disposal. And it's the sort of blanket rule to move to a portable cylinder for nitrous oxide, and for Entonox we need to conduct full leak testing. So we've actually got both a regional and national funding behind this as well, which is really good. So if I'm talking to lots of the trust about this already, but if this is something you want to have a chat with me about, then please reach out. Now this is where the video happens, so fingers crossed this works, and please, I can't see anyone, so give me a shout if you can't hear it, but there's a case study here that I wanted to share with you from Eastbourne General Hospital about their decarbonisation journey. Is it going to work? Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
This project's about decarbonising Eastbourne District General Hospital. New facade, new heat pumps, new solar panels, and all the infrastructure that sits behind it.
So the work we've done at Eastbourne Hospital was part of a tendered process with the Carbon Energy Fund, funded through SALIX, the public sector decarbonisation scheme. We've delivered solutions including external cladding, roof insulation, low carbon heating through cascade heat pumps. We've offset the electricity cost with a 1.1 megawatt solar carport scheme, and I continue to support the Trust with additional grant schemes working towards a net zero in 2040.
This is the first NHS hospital in the UK that is completely powered by renewable energy. And more than that, we've taken a 1970s hospital building, we've reclad it, we've reglazed it, we've re-roofed it, and given it a building fabric performance of a brand new 2020 building, which is really exciting. We've ripped out the old steam system and replaced it with a multi-stage air source heat pump system that produces water at 80 degrees C. And we've built a 1.1 megawatt solar system over the car park that's providing renewable electricity to feed that heat pump system.
The building makes you proud to work here now. It gives off a really good first impression for our patients and obviously for our staff, and I hope that it will attract people to actually come and work here.
For our visitors and our patients, we do believe it changes the experience. So if you go in a hospital, you know, you've got brand new windows, we don't get as many drafts as we had before, so it just not only looks better, but actually should feel better for them as well.
And the important thing to remember about this particular project is not only does it reduce the carbon footprint of the hospital, but it improves efficiency because we've got much more efficient equipment, more reliable equipment, and we're going to be operating and maintaining this equipment for the next 15 years for the client.
So for the first time ever on an NHS hospital, we have a before and after set of data for the fabric works, which means we can actually see the impact of what that fabric actually does. And the results are looking exciting, and they'll be published and be available from the Carbon and Energy Fund shortly.
So we're saving Eastbourne over 4,000 tonnes of CO2 a year. Now, to put that into perspective, that's the equivalent of 2,500 cars emissions for a year.
So working with Veolia, I mean, we started with the bid team very early on, all the way through bidding, financing, all the way through to construction. So I've built a long-term relationship with lots of really good people within Veolia. We intend to use that in the future as well, use that work that we've done together to build better and greater things.
So the decarbonisation solutions that Veolia provide are absolutely accessible to all of our clients, whether it's the pharmaceutical sector, aerospace, schools, supermarkets, general manufacturing. We're expert in delivering these solutions, and we can help our clients on their journey to ecological transformation.
We're immensely proud to be part of this special project, one that takes a holistic approach to decarbonising in the health sector. It doesn't just end at the construction. Our long-term partnership with the Trust ensures that we maintain the equipment, ensuring its performance over the life of the contract. Together, we're not just reducing carbon emissions, we're setting the standard for sustainability in the healthcare sector.
So it's a pretty impressive transformation, I think, and I just wanted to highlight that because it's one of many that's happening across the region. The car parks are particularly impressive, I think, and actually in France, it's now in law that all large car parks must have solar panels attached to them. And to save 4,000 tonnes of carbon is just absolutely ginormous. It's so impressive. And so this is my last slide. I'm aware I'm going a bit over, but I just wanted to put this slide on. I think there's lots of conversations happening about sustainability, and it can be such an overwhelming topic. So I just wanted to put a slide on what you can do. And I guess it's an easy one at first, is to just start connecting, start collaborating, come and join our network, our regional network. We do monthly newsletters. As I said, we're about to launch a monthly regional network. If we're coming to visit to your hospital, I'll try and make it as sort of, I'll try and make sure that we've got good comms about where we're going and what dates we'll be there, but come and say hello. We'd love to have a chat with everyone. And please get in touch if you want to have a chat with me. Okay, that's me done. Thank you.
Wow, well done, Kate. That was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I have to say, what a fab introduction. I think we couldn't set this day off any better, actually, apart from Kay and I, obviously. But no, honestly, brilliant first presentation. Very informative. And I think, your enthusiasm really comes through on this. So thank you for all that you're doing for us here at Team South East. But I think it was a very thought-provoking presentation, and I love the fact our ambition in the South East is big, but that's right and proper. We should have a big ambition around this, so it's really great to be able to see that on the slide. I know you will be sharing the slides after. I'd be keen to obviously clearly get those. The road shows are fantastic, and again, shout out to everyone to engage. Wonderful you're pretty much going to every region nearly, aren't you? Actually, in where you're picking to go, which every system where you're picking to go. And Eastbourne, I was actually down at East Sussex on Friday with a visit with Duncan Burton, and I actually got to see those solar panels for what they are. I have to say, it's really impressive, really impressive. But the impact clearly that's going to have is amazing, isn't it? What great innovation, though. Absolutely. I don't know how long it took them to do that, actually. I don't know, but anyway, that's a question. But yeah, really fantastic. And then the last bit I want to say is a call to action, but also a call to get involved with people on the call, and anybody that that are on the call that you can grab to bring into this, because the more people we've got galvanised around this, the better, isn't it? For sure. So thanks so much, Kate. Fantastic. Okay, shall we move on? And initially I did say at the beginning, we've only got an hour, but we've actually got 2 hours, so don't you worry. Should we go to the next, conscious of time now, the next agenda item, which is the language of climate change communications. And we've got Hayley, I think, who's going to take us through this. Hayley, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Oh, amazing. Hayley, all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen. So we've got some slides. Okay. Make that full screen. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, all good.
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay. So I'm here to talk about the language of communicating climate change, because language is just such a powerful tool at our disposal, and everybody here today is already passionate about, there we go, already passionate about sustainability in healthcare, but really what the focus of this presentation is about is how we talk to people who might be less passionate, people who are maybe interested but really busy, or perhaps even, you know, a little bit cynical. So it's about how can we really communicate about this so that we bring absolutely everybody with us, or as many people as possible. And I think this quote by David Attenborough sort of sums up why this is important, because if we don't communicate effectively about climate change and, you know, the impact that it can have on our health and our lives, we're not going to see the change that we want to happen. So it's a joint challenge now, really. So there's been a lot of change in the language that we use around climate change. So, you know, we've gone from global warming, global heating, climate emergency, climate crisis, climate breakdown. And while we might be familiar with what that means, or have our own sense of what that means because we're working in that space a lot more, people who don't, who just sort of pick up the odd headline here or there, it can be really confusing. And then that confusion can turn to switch off, and things just don't become meaningful to people. And sometimes the language around climate change is quite scientific and technical. And again, people can't connect to those words in a way, sort of more not too emotional, but certainly language that resonates with people is going to land better. If we're creating a narrative around it that's focused on technical language that generates fear, then generally what happens is people either turn away, or fear leads to inaction. People feel paralyzed. So it's about using words, talking about this in a way that doesn't create fear, but creates hope, creates an impetus to action, and allow people to see this as not a stumbling block, but a way forward. So part of that is about really, and I think that some of what we've already talked about today, and what, you know, Kate was just sharing about showing progress, about giving people context, is really empowering. And that's the approach that's really going to help and land with people so that we can start to see the change that we're aiming for. One of the sort of pitfalls that I think maybe we've landed in the past, and I think maybe this is changing a bit, but it's about giving people too much information. You know, there's this belief that if people just know, especially if you're very passionate about the impact of climate change, you really want people to know, to understand just how important that this is. And if you think if we just give them everything, all the facts, all the figures, all the impacts, then they'll just naturally want to act. And that actually isn't the case. That hasn't always been working. And it can create a sense of overwhelm, apathy. People can just feel like a little bit hopeless, that I can't do anything. It's so big, I can't do anything. So it's about framing it in a way that, yes, we get the facts and figures across. We can't hide from the fact that this is a really important and, you know, life-changing time for us, but framing it in a way that makes it possible, and particularly because we work in healthcare, framing how we talk about our changing climate within the frame of health, how this impacts our health, can really help make it land with people. And just that context shapes the possibility of change. So bearing in mind we work in healthcare, I think that we can all agree that most of our audience are going to be quite time poor. You know, we work in an area that is incredibly pressured, and it's often face to face with patients. There isn't a lot of wriggle room to take on board things. So it's really important that we get what we're saying right first time, so that people can grasp what they need to do and play a part in that. And I know earlier we were talking about the importance of clinicians in this space, and I can't emphasize that enough, that ultimately achieving net zero carbon is going to need clinical change. We need to completely transform how we deliver care, whether that's care pathways or whether it's the drugs that we use. You mentioned the nitrous oxide. There's so many things that are massively linked into the clinical aspect of healthcare that getting clinicians on board is absolutely vital. So it's about keeping it short and simple. It's about keeping the focus local. There's quite a lot. It's quite easy to talk about the planet, about the earth, and sort of the big picture. And while that's important, what really matters to people is what's happening in the area where they live or the region where they live. And so if we can keep the impacts sort of relevant to where people are from, where they're working, where their family work, where their friends work, that can really help make it meaningful to them in a way that they want to take action and do something. Focusing on loss aversion over gain framing is another important thing. And sort of psychologically speaking, we're more likely to do something if it means we'll lose something we already have than if we'll gain something that we might get. So, thinking about, losing our green spaces and the fact that we enjoy our parks and our fields and things, if they're going to go, we already have them. So protecting them makes more sense than potentially gaining something that you can see would be a good thing to have, but you don't have it yet. So it's sort of giving people, again, that motivation to act. And that sort of links into the next thing about keeping it on the here and now, trying to keep the time frame as close to the here and now as possible. I know that we talk about net zero by 2040, but actually for some people that's really far away, and they sort of think, oh, we've got ages to get there, we can take our time on this, it's fine, that's got over a decade. But actually, if we can sort of talk about things in chunks and almost like a timeline, so in the next 6 months, if we achieve that, then we'll get here, and then in the next 6 months we'll get that, and ultimately we'll get to this net zero by 2040. So it's about keeping people present so that it feels real and it feels like they need to do something now, rather than being able to park it and do something about it later when it might be too late. And this again leads into this idea of action, not rhetoric. So it's thinking about what can we do? This isn't about the importance of doing something. It isn't about, I mean, it is about that, but when we talk about it, it's about what can we do? What change can we make? What one thing can I do today? Not you must think every second about climate change. This is, bombastic speech, although sometimes powerful, isn't necessarily going to lead to the action that we want. So it's about framing things in a way that doesn't seem too massive, which is why on the don't column, we've got the putting climate in front of everything, climate action. It's just action. People just need to act. And that leads us into the idea about just being honest without being scary. We can't pretend this isn't a big issue, but we can make it feel like people can do something about it. And again, this feeds in. So they all feed into each other. This is about not laying on the threats of my, sort of talking about drought, thinking about flooding, thinking about intense heat waves. Yes, they're coming, but we can do something about it, which is why we want to be solution, not problem focused. So it's thinking about all the things. And I think Kate did a great job of highlighting that in her presentation there. There are so many solutions already in progress, and we might not see the outcomes of those for a few months or even a few years, as some of these things are really big projects, but they're in motion, and talking about them and the problems that they're solving is a really good way forwards. So, and ultimately, this is about health. This is about how climate change is impacting our health. We talked about air pollution earlier and asthma, and sort of linking it in those ways really helps it resonate with healthcare professionals. So again, I just want to emphasize, I know everybody on this webinar today is already passionate about this, and we can talk about environmental protection in these spaces because we understand and it resonates and it's something that we're interested in. When I'm talking about this language use and this way of framing things, I'm really thinking about talking to the people who aren't here today and how we get them on board, and that focus on healthcare, making it relevant to the job that they're choosing to do, is really, really important. So quick overview. This is a great slide. I've credited it there to the Climate Exchange, who got a really good website on communicating about the climate crisis. So essentially, these 4 steps, and I think this is already in progress with the Greener NHS work, will help make talking about the climate crisis within healthcare and what we can do within healthcare to tackle it really positive. So it's providing a vision for the future. So we're already talking about net zero by 2040. We're talking about where that can transform patient experiences and the care we provide, how it can transform the experience of people working within healthcare, you know, things like virtual appointments, freeing up waiting lists, making people's work-life balance easier to manage, that possibility of more remote working, all of those things. So providing that vision for what healthcare in the future that is sustainable looks like is really, really key. Connecting the dots on the things that already people care about. I've already mentioned about linking this back into health, and that, you know, that covers that one off there. Not shying away from the uncertainty. You know, we're not going to have all of the answers, but if we're asking the right questions, then eventually we will get the answers. And it's okay not to know. It's okay to raise something and say, oh, but, you know, I think this might be something that's creating a lot of pollution here, but I'm not quite sure what we might do differently. I wonder what we could do to investigate that. And it's okay to sort of not know. And I think that's something that people don't always feel comfortable with. People feel if they raise something, they might need to already have the solution. So making it okay for people to question and to kind of challenge the norm is a really good way forwards in terms of finding the solutions that we want. And lastly, and I think this is really working with the case studies on the Greener NHS website, is sharing the facts, sharing the figures that can be scary through storytelling. It's about sharing what we're doing, giving it a life, giving it a personality, having, you know, people respond best to people, and shaping the data through someone's story makes it memorable. We pass on stories to each other, you know, so it proliferates the message, it gets it out there. So this is definitely the way forwards, and the networking that Kate was talking about earlier and everybody getting together and sharing their stories with each other is going to be absolutely vital to getting those stories and pushing them out through other mediums and getting them beyond those networks into organisations. So I've just got a slide where I've captured some language that we use, and what we might use instead. And this talks to what I was saying around a lot of the language around climate change can be quite scientific, and that can put people off. So, you know, if we're talking about greenhouse gases, pollution, people understand pollution, particularly in a healthcare setting. You know, we know that pollution, air pollution, is aggravating respiratory issues, for example. So we kind of get that too much pollution isn't good for us. So just trying to swap out some of the language can really help it land with people who may not already be interested in this particular space. So decarbonisation, a less polluting alternative, swapping out protecting the planet for protecting the community. I won't go through them all because I'm going to share the slides. Some of the kind of key ones, kind of carbon footprint. It's language that we use without really thinking about it if it's something that we're sort of working with a lot. But sort of impact on the environment, that's something that people can understand, that, you know, that if we're using too much nitrous oxide, then that will impact on, and then we sort of frame it in terms of the environmental damage it might do or the health damage it might do, rather than the carbon footprint of it. And I noticed in the video from Eastbourne that Chris contextualized the carbon emissions in terms of, well, that equates to this number of cars on the road, and that kind of way of presenting the carbon data is really, really important. Sort of what it equates to helps people conceptualize it and come to grips with it. So it's really, really important. Just a few little things down the list that I just want to flag are biodiversity. That's something that crops up quite a lot, I've noticed, and people sort of roughly know what we might mean by biodiversity, but they don't necessarily 100%. If you talk about nature, if you talk about wildlife, you talk about their green spaces, that's stuff that lands with them. So it's really just a case of kind of meeting people where they're at, because if we do that, then they're far more likely to come along with us and help support the change we want to see. So really, this is, I'm hoping, a positive call to action about the story that you can tell. You know, every single one of us can be a multiplier of this message around climate change and health. Every single one of us can reach out to friends, to colleagues, to partners that we work with across healthcare. And we can all tell a story about what we're doing or what we know is happening somewhere else. And it's in that sharing and in that telling of the story that we will see people start to take this on board and create the change that we want to see. And, you know, ultimately the stories that we tell today is the history that we make tomorrow. And let's hope the history books say that, you know, we've created really positive change and managed to bring down the climate warming to below the 2 degrees for the Paris Climate Treaty. I'm going to share these slides, so you're going to get these resources. They are all absolutely brilliant. I've pulled a lot of what was in my presentation today from bits and bobs of these, so you could go into any one of them and come away with even more information. Of all of them, I would say perhaps the language to use when talking about climate change is really quick. It's a very short one. Climate Outreach, a really great charity, and they've done some really good guidance for the IPCC authors. So that's quite nice for if you sort of have a more technical slant on things, for sort of translating that into more everyday language. But all of them are great. I recommend you dip into them if talking about this is something you're really passionate about doing. I will stop sharing my screen now. So that was a bit of a whirlwind tour, and if anyone's got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them either now, or if you would want to email me after the event, I'm happy to do that as well.
Yeah, brilliant. I should have said, actually, I suppose any questions put in the chat as well, because I know we're on a tight timeline here and schedule. We might get some time at the end, actually. But huge thank you, Hayley, for that presentation. I have to say, another fab presentation. And can I say it was communicated incredibly well, very articulate. But I love some of your slides. And again, sharing this presentation, I think will be a winner. I mean, that one about the language, wow, it's quite a powerful slide actually, in the sort of the meaning, isn't it? And on some of those bits, perhaps I got slightly wrong on some of the phrases actually of what you thought it meant. So putting it into plain English, I think is really, really useful. But I love landing the message is really key on this, isn't it? And that's where you started right at the beginning of that presentation, and then allowed it to flow through. And it's for people to have that understanding, but also how does it influence you as an individual, isn't it? And actually, what is it I'm going to I love that. Actually, what am I going to lose that I've already got right now is far more tangible, isn't it, to an individual than something that could well be you know, out there that we could have, as you very well articulated. And I love that our story today is our history tomorrow as well. It's really powerful. So brilliant presentation. Again, really powerful. So thank you, and said delivered really well. Right, wow, we're on a roadshow here, aren't we, guys? So let's go to our next presentation then. I've got Hazel, who's going to take us through where are the opportunities of maternity services to become more sustainable and how to get involved. So Hazel, over to you. Thank you.
Hello. Hi everyone. Lovely to be here. I just wanted to start off by saying a really big thank you. I was thinking today how hard it is for clinical staff. I spend my whole day at a computer, and how hard it is for people to make the time. And I just wanted to say a really, really big thank you for coming, and also to echo what Kate said about courses and making time for courses. One of the things that our education team at the Centre for Sustainable Healthcare is doing is just launching a new platform where we're trying to take into account the fact that people are really limited with time, and we're trying to make sure that our resources start at a lighter touch, and then people can build up where they have more interest. So I really do sort of urge you, if you haven't done one of our courses and you get the opportunity through the funding, then please do take it. Our education team are brilliant, and we, like I say, we're trying to launch our new platform and make it more accessible. So please do that. I was also thinking very much to what Hayley was just saying around that clinical involvement. The estates team video is brilliant. So many good things happening, but I think we often, when we think about net zero, we think about sustainability, people often go to estates first off, and they think about electric ambulances, they think about solar panels, they think about LED light bulbs, all of these things, and often sustainability teams sit in estates. But we believe really, really strongly at the centre that it's clinical engagement that is so vital, and that's why these sort of events are so important. And actually, I'm going to talk about maternity in particular. The funding that we've been given through the SBRI Healthcare is actually around clinical community engagement. And it's that community engagement that has been really recognised as really vital. As well as engaging the community, we need to know what we can do, and that is really lacking in lots of areas. Key examples of what can be done, and that implementation of policy, and maternity is one of those areas where it has really come up. We have a bit of a tumbleweed moment of examples. So this project that we're doing is really a good way of building some of those examples. So I'm going to take you through some of the things. Just before I forget, I've popped a couple of links into the meeting chat so that I don't forget at the end, just to say, please do use our free resource library for examples. There's case studies in there, lots of really good examples, and our networks as well. I know there's lots of networks out there, some local, some national, but please do join. Talk a little bit about some of the upcoming events, because we've got a nitrous oxide event coming up and some other really, really interesting ones there. So I'm going to share my screen. I will go through the actual slides, hopefully as quickly as possible. Our project is very much looking not only at low carbon maternity care, but also equitable care, which I know was brought up earlier. What we really want to see is improved maternity outcomes and experiences, and that's really key. We believe sustainable care is good care, so that's our top focus. We want it to be more equitable. We want it to reach the people who have been underserved before, to have lower carbon, and also to really join together the maternity community around shared goals. So this is like a collective responsibility. It's a great project. I'm really, really enjoying it. Amazing bunch of partners, the Royal Colleges, ourselves. We've got, I'm sure people involved in sustainability will recognise Joe and Angie and Alice, who are absolute forces of nature and been really, really key to advising us in this project. And Alice Clack leads our Women's Health Network as well. So absolutely brilliant team of people involved. So what we're going to do in the project, so we have already done some of these things. We've recruited and involved a lived experience group. We have mapped and analysed the maternity pathway as it is. So we've identified hotspots, and we've agreed some target areas that I will talk about. And we are just about to start, which I'm very excited about, our Green Maternity Challenge. So what we want is to have teams on the ground tackling the hotspots and the target areas that we've identified. And throughout this, we want to be, the key thing is about engaging people, getting people excited about sustainability and getting people seeing what can be done. So that's our goal. Our lived experience group, having this group, we've got 10 amazing people. And it's really been transformative. I've learned a huge amount from this about how much you learn when you listen. And we talked about stories. You listen to the stories and the experiences of people who are not only going through the system, but supporting other people. So these were just a few of the ideas that came up. But our lived experience group were the ones that developed the target areas. And we made very little changes to them. They were given all the information and they were absolutely brilliant. So with everything, I would encourage people to speak to their patients, the people using their services. So it might not be very surprising, some of the carbon hotspots within maternity care, but the actual healthcare setting is, you know, the biggest carbon impact in terms of inpatient days, where appointments are being held. NTNOx, we've talked about patient travel, so where people are having to get to, how they're travelling, the medicines involved in care, the birth process itself, and infant feeding. So quite interesting debates and quite a mixed carbon picture, because breastfeeding and infant and bottle feeding both have carbon impacts because of the increased nutritional requirements of the mother. So actually what they are eating and the nutrition and food that they are getting is really important as well. And then we mapped our equity hotspots. And obviously we want to improve the access and experience for people who have been underserved in the past. So in particular, some of the areas that came up was access to pain relief. There are certain demographics that are less likely to be offered an epidural. We know that transport, access to a car was a really, really big thing that came up in our lived experience group. And we also know that actually access to a car is, much lower in certain demographics. Getting culturally relevant information and getting things in your correct language, lack of continuity of care in some communities, and reduced choice. So those were some of the things that came up within equity. So I'm going to come a little bit later on to our target areas, but I just wanted to introduce what we want to try and do. So we are running a green maternity challenge. And we are in the recruitment phase at the moment. So this closes on the 20th of September. So if anyone's really keen, you still have time to get involved. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to recruit project teams that are on the ground who've hopefully got ideas about what the changes they'd like to make in their settings. And then what they will get from us is support. So support to build a project design, to evaluate it. You get carbon footprinting support from our sustainability and quality improvement team. So it's around £4,000 to £5,000 worth of support and training and skills that your team gets. And we support all the way through from project design through to writing it up, putting it out to, a lot of our teams in the past have gone on to win awards, become very high profile. So this all ends with a big showcase event, which is it's a judging event. And I really liked to notice a bit of healthy competition. And I noticed that there was a lot of pride in the Southeast. So it would be great if we got some Southeast entries in, and it is a competition. We do have a winner at the end because a bit of healthy competition really does help. So that's the Green Maternity Challenge. So if you haven't heard before, it's based around our sustainability and quality improvement methodology, which our goal for this is that it's all quality improvement includes sustainability, that it just becomes the go-to. It's nothing different from normal quality improvement. We're just looking at it, and we talked about that it was talked about earlier, the triple bottom line. For us, value is also about the outcomes for patients and populations. So not just about reducing carbon and cost, but improving outcomes for patients, improving the impact for staff as well. So all of this is based around our SUSQI. So just a little example. So this is from our Green Team competition, which is similar to the Green Maternity Challenge, but teams in a particular setting, lots of different types of team come together, and a really good example of the fact that clinical decisions can make, and clinical pathways can make such a difference. So this was looking at their HIV service in Northamptonshire. And they decided to change how they monitored very stable patients. And you can see that just by taking away low value appointments, what a difference this can make. And it was a huge financial saving. Patients were happier with it, huge amounts of time saved, and it actually improved people's adherence to their treatment and coming in as well. So just a really good example of the sort of project that we work with and the sort of data that we get out of projects. So coming back to our target areas, I will go through these reasonably quickly, but I'd love people's thoughts on them. So the target areas that we identified, the first one was valuing people's time. Wasted time is wasted carbon, it's bad experience. So actually streamlining services so that we avoid waste was a key one. Supporting informed choices. So this in particular, people talked a lot about feeding. There's a huge percentage of people who intend to breastfeed when they give birth, and a much smaller percentage that still are breastfeeding 6 weeks later. So this isn't about convincing people to do something that they don't want to do or they can't do. It's about offering the correct support to people to actually implement the choices that they have made. So that's a really good example. Pelvic health and continence, something close to lots of our hearts, is really, really important, and better care, better prevention, better care when there are issues with that. And there are some really shocking figures around the impact of PADS long term. So that's one that we hopefully will involve not just the maternity community, but go out into physio departments, things like that as well. And we talked about infant feeding. Complex pregnancies, we've done quite a lot of analysis into the hypertension pathway, and there's some great work. I know Angie's done some great work about how we monitor people on that pathway. Access and experience for people who experience worse maternity outcomes, so really focusing some resource on making sure that systems are serving people who have had poor outcomes. And a really key one, listening to people, and I include listening to staff in this one because there are some great ideas out there, but actually making sure that we're including the people who are affected, so the people using the services and the staff themselves as well. So there are a few examples. Some of the key things that we would love to see projects tackling: delayed discharge. This is a real issue. It's really frustrating for people who want to get home. It's really frustrating for staff. It makes a huge difference. So a project that looks at how that could be improved would be really welcomed. Linking better into local voluntary provision, so making sure that we're using the services and the support that's already out there. That's another example. Some of the other things that have come up around sort of peer support, culturally relevant support, new ways of monitoring, reducing travel to appointments, and yeah, more say in how people do access care. So there's just a few of the examples, and we're hoping that people will come up. This will whet the appetite and get people thinking about projects they could do or they've been hoping to do that they'd like some support with. So yeah, sort of put this into one slide of particular areas that we'd love projects to look at, and you'll notice there's no LED light bulbs or cladding or anything like that. It's all about the experience of those clinical care pathways. So that's where we are at the moment with it. I think that's all my slides, so I shall stop sharing. We do know, we're speaking to people and we are aware that the time to do this is really, really hard. And this is something that we are learning through the project, is that one of the reasons we think there's been there are fewer examples in maternity is that it's just a system under so much stress. And we are aware of that. And we don't want to assume that people have got time to do this work, and we want to advocate and lobby for more protected time for staff to be doing this. So we have high expectations, but we hope we can offer support to people who want to be part of that maternity challenge. And you will be the first people to know this, but we are just finalising funding for a green nursing challenge, which we are hoping to launch either the end of this year or the beginning of next year. So this will follow a similar format, but looking more at nursing communities. So spoiler alert, look out for that one. You are the first to know that. I think we are just signing off the very exciting funding for that one. The other thing that we'd love to hear about, and I'll pop my email in the chat as well, is we're involving industry in this. So for some of these, we've talked about Entonox, we've talked about some of the monitoring, that sort of thing. We want to be challenging industry to be playing their part. So if you have things that you want the maternity industry to be looking at, please do let us know, because we've got 2 industry events as part of the project, because the onus is on all of us, is a maternity community. So that is, the people using the service, the people delivering it, the people resourcing it. So please do let me know. I'm just trying to think about anything else I was going to try and get in before I let you ask any questions. Yeah, just to say we have got some events coming up. I know it's not quite live on the Women's Health Network, but there's an event on the 25th of September in the evening, talking about the importance of climate action. And we have also got, there's a huge amount of work being done in Scotland on nitrous oxide, and we're going to be hosting a webinar in the coming months with Leafia, who's done lots of work and lots of really good examples there on the Women's Health Network. So do join up, do look out for those events, and we'd really love to welcome you. There's obviously a nursing and midwifery network as well. So yeah, please, any questions, any thoughts? The whole point of the project is to get the chat going. So even if you disagree with things, talking about it is the important part.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hazel. And also just a warm welcome. Well, thank you for being here, actually, and also presenting today. Consciously from the Centre for Sustainable Healthcare. But again, another brilliant presentation, and again, really, really thought-provoking. And you do throw out the gauntlet and the challenge to us all. But it's great to see that there's obviously lots of different initiatives that you guys are doing as well, and coming up with to really promote that engagement and those thoughts. What I like about your presentation is around looking at it through the lens of care and pathways as to how we can make a difference around this. But I'm going to, because it's quite apt, I'm going to bring in our regional chief midwife, Kay, and she's put her hand up on the back of that. Kay, all yours.
Thanks, Andrew. Hazel, that's absolutely marvellous. And I definitely want to speak to you after this. So be in touch. I've got Faye, our maternity governance lead, on the call as well. I think the beauty of this is so many of the issues that you highlighted are actually picked up through our single delivery plan. And that's what gives me hope that we're looking at the same sort of things. One of the bugbears that I have many, but one of them is around incontinence. And the fact that this has been normalised for women who have given birth. You only have to look at the TV adverts, you know, no longer go and see a GP, go and speak to a health professional about it. It's just go and buy this fancy pair of pants that will contain whatever you pass. So I think picking up those sorts of things, we've already got the pelvic health work that's going on. And this is what I think it comes back to what we talked about in the previous presentation as well. It's making it real. This is what we're talking about when we are talking about this green and sustainable issue. I love the fact that you referenced about the inequalities as well and getting that care out there. There is a lot of work going on in the Southeast, actually. So I think it would be really, really helpful to link up and be able to point you in the direction. And of course, if there are any prizes, then I'm desperate that we get them down here. We're not at all competitive at all. But again, the point that Kate made, and I love it, and I think it's going to be a tagline that we use, is cost, care and carbon, because for everything that you're talking about, there is that implication. It affects every single thing. Marvellous, absolutely marvellous. So Faye and I will be in touch straight after. Superb, really, really good and thought-provoking. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions, Hazel, please put in the chat. Bit conscious, obviously, we've got other presentations to get through, but thank you again, Hazel. As Kay said, really thought-provoking, and we will be in touch, so fab. Right, that brings on to our next presentation then, and Stephanie, you're going to be leading us on this, aren't you? And we're going to be covering here the hybrid nursing and sustainability role, what opportunities lie ahead, and your clinical fellow for sustainability at NHS Kent and Midway. So, Stephanie, all yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that okay?
Yep, we can. Thank you.
Lovely. So I'll have to keep this short, I'm afraid, because I only booked the room until 11:30 and I'm not sure if there's someone after me. So hi, everyone. To those I haven't met, my name is Stephanie Ireland. I'm the Clinical Fellow for Sustainability with the Greener NHS, and my host organisation is NHS Kent and Midway. And I've just started last week, so I'm on a secondment for 12 months, but my background is in cardiothoracic ICU as a staff nurse. So the slideshow aims to highlight the connection between health and climate, to examine the hybrid role of sustainability with any other clinical role, to provide examples of actions that we can take, and to explore additional sustainability opportunities beyond the hybrid role. So I know that this is preaching to the converted as to why healthcare professionals should care about climate change, but I think it's important to reiterate and emphasise the impact of climate change on health, and the responsibility that healthcare providers like us should feel in tackling climate change. So WHO described climate change as the greatest global threat to human health, which will impact our patients and our staff locally. And with over 1.2 million NHS employees, we have the collective power to advocate for greener healthcare practices. Nurses and midwives are the largest and most trusted professional workforce, and we are uniquely positioned to lead health improvements across the country. If healthcare were a nation, it would rank as the 5th largest emitter of greenhouse gases. Climate change is also a social justice issue, disproportionately affecting those who contribute least to it. Healthcare professionals have the skills to help people to adapt to climate change while also advocating for measures to mitigate its impact. And we will see worsening financial pressures on the NHS. And these sustainability initiatives will often lead to cost savings. So before I talk about the aims of the role of sustainability in a clinical hybrid role, I'll just explain what it is. So basically, it's working as a healthcare professional, but also having protected time to work on sustainability. So I'll talk a little bit how I got there later on in the presentation, but it's in an ideal situation, we're trying to advocate for 1 day a week working on sustainability and the rest clinical time, so which would equate to about 80% clinical and 20% sustainability. So the idea being that there is, within each trust, there'll be a clinical sustainability role. For me, it was only 5% of my time, so I got 1 shift a month, but that was granted by my matron rather than the trust itself. So it was very generous of my matron to pay for that. But ideally, this will be something that, we'll have further funding for, and we'll be able to see the benefits for it, and we'll see more roles like this crop up across the country. So the aims of the role are to combine clinical work with protected time for researching, designing and implementing quality improvement projects that align with the Trust's Green Plan, to enhance staff wellbeing and retention, to acknowledge the valuable contributions that we bring to sustainability and net zero initiatives. And as workers on the floor, we know how healthcare provision works and what initiatives can succeed and what won't. Ensure projects have measurable environmental benefits, including tangible carbon reductions, and making sure to assess the triple bottom line, and that's the environmental, financial and community impacts of every action that we take. What are the benefits of this role to your workplace? So as mentioned before, sustainability projects often lead to cost savings, offering significant financial benefits to the workplace. Nurses and midwives in this role would actively contribute to the implementation of green plans, support national net zero goals, and foster local staff engagement on sustainability. It acknowledges and celebrates the contributions that we make to sustainability efforts, and it can raise the platform and the profile of our efforts across the country. Sustainability often serves as an equaliser in the workplace and encourages open dialogue between all staff despite standing. What are the potential benefits for you as a clinical staff member and hybrid role? So you will gain valuable experience in leadership, in project management, in auditing, collaborating with many key stakeholders, and the opportunity to submit projects into journals. So this is something that I have done with one of the major projects I worked on, support and coaching from the Chief Nursing Office for hybrid nursing midwifery roles. This is something that they're trying to carve out nationally, and if you are interested and want to get more support, you can speak to me, and I can send your information on to Emma and Ria at the Chief Nursing Office. And presenting your work at conferences and and at meetings. So how did I get here? So initially when I started working in the UK, I went about seeking a clinical sustainability network and my trust, and found that there wasn't one. So I set one up, engaged in some networking, met key stakeholders from all parts of the hospital and the trust. I was appointed as the clinical lead for sustainability at my hospital. And from there, I reviewed the Green Plan and found that because we didn't have the procurement data available, that 95% of our carbon emissions that we could see were coming from energy. And so from that, decided that my major project and first project would be on energy efficiency. And working in ICU, we are a highly intensive energy intensive unit, and so we decided to use it as a pilot project so we could scale it up across the rest of the hospital and across the rest of the trust. So what does the role of the hybrid nurse and sustainability role include? So it is self-directed and it requires you to be very proactive. It demands determination, networking and relevant knowledge, engaging with senior staff across various disciplines, and overseeing and leading sustainability projects. So this is just a brief introduction to some of the projects that I worked on within my role as a hybrid nurse. So as I mentioned, the major project I worked on was the energy project. And so I worked with our energy estates manager, our sustainability team, one of our sustainability consultants, with my matron, with the medical officer of AICU, and it was very much a collaborative team response, and also infection control for the temperature control as well. And with this, we calculated that the savings per year would be around £11,500, nearly 60,000 kilowatt hours. And I think it's 11.1 tons of CO2 emissions per year. So this was basically just changing all of our lights over to LED and our light fittings over to LED as well, and changing the temperature variation limit to 21 to 25 before heating and cooling mechanisms come into play. Early mobilisation. So this was just about creating clearer guidance for staff to get confidence and knowledge on when it was appropriate to mobilise ICU patients, because the sooner we can get patients up and moving, the better it is for them, and the sooner we can get them out of ICU, the better it is for resource use as well. Gloves awareness, which is a project that has been taken on successfully by many trusts, and we really emphasise the need for appropriate hand hygiene and how this is actually the most important thing in reducing healthcare associated infections and reducing unnecessary use of PPE. We created better waste segregation, so changing from our clinical waste to tiger waste and installing some more recycling bins, and reducing unnecessary blood sampling, so using other parameters to measure oxygenation and perfusion rather than just looking at our blood gases. And I've also done some awareness and training, so sessions like this before. So how can you ask for a similar hybrid role? So start by becoming a sustainability champion in your workplace and showcasing your commitment. This is what I would recommend, because this is what I've done, and really show that you're passionate. And from this, you can advocate for a hybrid clinical sustainability role and really emphasize the triple bottom line, which is in the graphic below. And what I've done with my projects is I was able to show the savings that it would have for the trust. And, within a year, my 1 day a month was easily paid off by the savings from the projects. And you can join the National Nursing and Midwifery Sustainability Network, which is run by Emma, who I mentioned earlier, who is very happy to help with further hybrid roles and can offer support and guidance. And what lies ahead beyond the hybrid role? So I had the hybrid role for about a year. Before that, I was doing all my sustainability projects in my spare time. And now I have been accepted onto the clinical fellowship for Greener NHS. So this is a national fellowship that works with a host organisation to decarbonise and embed net zero carbon principles into healthcare. So as mentioned, I'm working with Kenton Medway this year, and my major project will be on decarbonising general practices. So this is something that you can do. There are other fellowships available across the country as well, which you can apply for. Other opportunities include pursuing specialised training and certificates in sustainability, participating in research and sustainability healthcare practices, joining professional networks focused on sustainability in healthcare, and exploring leadership roles in sustainability initiatives at different levels to increase impact. And this is a growing field in the UK, but worldwide. And, you know, the emphasis on sustainability in healthcare is just becoming greater. And the call for and the need for like-minded and knowledgeable clinical staff is just, it's growing. So important reminders when you're working on sustainability: try not to get discouraged. It can be easy to be. However, you just have to try and persist. If you find like-minded people within your workplace and externally, I networked at my trust and also nationally, and this really reinvigorates you and makes you, it helps you realize why you're doing this in the first place. And the key to any successful project is to liaise and work with the entire MDT. And just to remember, looking after our environment is looking after our patients. And I've just got some references there, and just a thanks to Ria Con, one of the previous NHS fellows who contributed some of the content to these slides. And here is my email if you want to get in contact. And I can also put you in touch with Emma and Ria, as mentioned before. I'm not sure if I've got time for questions, a few minutes, but otherwise, yeah, feel free to email me. I'll show my email to the chat now.
Brilliant. Thank you, Stephanie. And you came in right in time as well on at the half 11. Can I just say, brilliant presentation again? And I think what you illustrated in your presentation clearly, I mean, your passion for this, but also I can understand now why you got your clinical fellow, because, you know, going back to your, you know, doing your clinical lead in the trust, albeit was it just 1 day a month, did you say? Wowee. But actually what you achieved in that time is really quite incredible. But it's impactful in how you illustrated that, I think. And then coming back to that impact on the, you know, that sustainable value to being able to illustrate that, I think, to trust boards is really important, because you clearly paid for yourself, didn't you, being able to do that, but enabled you then to go on to this role that you're now in. And I think, you know, exciting about the impact you'll be able to have in this new project that you've got as well. And so thank you. I know you're just starting on that journey, but well done in achieving this role, and excited to see what the results are going to be from that. And I love your top tips, actually. Couldn't say it better myself. Be persistent. It's so true in life, isn't it? Just be persistent and find like-minded people. And I think also the point you make around the MDT approach is so kind. I'm very conscious of talking from a nursing midwifery perspective here today, but actually in order to be able to really make any change here, we've got to have that MDT approach, haven't we? So brilliant. Again, anything for Stephanie, please put in the chat, and hopefully you can just then follow that up, but also email. But a huge thanks again. So thank you. Right, should we go on to our next presentation, which is Sadie Sullivan's going to take us through this, and this is impacts on training, and it's a follow-up actually from our Green Week, Sadie. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Amazing. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for having me today. I'm just going to share my slides, so bear with me 2 seconds. Right. Good morning, everybody. So, as you rightly say, this is a follow-up from the Green Week, of which we were really fortunate to be one of the winners one of the prizes. So I'd really like to follow up on that and kind of just give you a bit of an update on something that's come out of our project that has been a really special outcome. So for anyone who hasn't met me before, I'm Sadie Sullivan. I am the clinical lead for education and practice development for paediatrics and neonates for UHS Sussex, which may be the longest job title going. But I basically cover the education for all of nursing and AHPs across paediatrics and neonates from Brighton to Chichester. So I have a wonderful, wonderful job, which I get to focus on making things better, which makes me a very lucky girl. So one of the things we have been focusing on is our mental health program, which I spoke to you guys about previously, and also our how we can impact on sustainability. So we are so fortunate to live down here in Sussex, and I actually speak to you from an office where I'm surrounded by either countryside or the seaside. It depends which window you look from. So I just thought I'd start with a lovely picture there. The focuses we've been kind of working with in children's services is our Nature and Nurture project, which I'm going to speak to you guys about in a minute. We've been working with our simulation team on a project which I am so excited about, and I really hope you have my colleague to a feature meeting. Her name's Jules Turner, and she's been running a really interesting program about equipment and sustainability from procurement, about how we source equipment throughout the trust for simulation purposes. And we've been developing some of our staff to look at child health and neonatal services and sustainability projects going forward. So, as I say, we're really fortunate to be one of the winners from Green Week, and we've used the funding from Centre of Sustainability Education Training to put the following staff through different programmes, of which we're really excited to see what comes from their learning. But as you can see, quite a few of them are later in the year, so lots yet to come. So, and the programme I'd like to talk to you about is a programme that I've been leading on, which we've been calling Nature and Nurture. So we spoke to you previously about a mental health programme we've been running in UHS Sussex, which is for the care of children and young people within acute services. Now, I could probably take up the whole time just talking about this programme, but it's been a really important programme for us, which is a 5-day education programme, which has been very much focused on how we look after children and young people in acute settings and how we improve their care. However, what was really important for me was, although it was an education programme, it also had a huge responsibility to ensure that there was pastoral care for all of our team members in attendance. We needed a venue that was practical. As I said earlier, we cover all the way from Brighton across to Chichester, so our geography is huge. So we really wanted somewhere that was relatively central, easy to get to, and had a teaching space that was accommodating for us. However, we were really, really fortunate to find the Arundel Wildfowl and Wetlands Centre. We chose this venue for those practical reasons, but we also chose it because it was central to a natural environment. If you look at the literature in this area, teaching in a natural environment has got a massive impact on staff well-being, engagement, and how connected they feel to the content and to one another. I'll happily share all these slides later, but this is just a literature review that we completed looking at this, at where do you provide education? We were particularly passionate not to run it in the hospital environment. Talking about some of these cases would have been particularly triggering for some of our staff, and we felt that coming away from that was a really important part. However, if you look at some of this data, it will really show why we chose to use a natural environment, because we wanted to lower those anxiety levels, we wanted to increase human connection between our staff, and we really wanted something that really looked at the health and well-being benefits. We were very lucky in that way we have the opportunity to take staff out of practice for 5 days. We really wanted to make the most of that. So that's what the literature said, and we were really hopeful this would be a productive method to go forward with, but we've been absolutely astounded by the difference it's made to be in a natural environment with our staff. These are a couple of pictures to show you. If you haven't been to Arundel Wetlands, highly advise it. It's a lovely day out. But what we've been able to do is encourage our staff to go outside throughout the day. We've done this as part of the activities throughout the day. So we have like some grounding exercises. We've recently, we've got another program starting on Monday and made kind of like a hunt for them to go out and kind of really utilize the space. The space is also available to them over the entire week, so they can go out at any point during the program if something is particularly difficult for them. They can go for a walk. Faculty can either go with them or they can have that time by themselves. They can go out on their lunch breaks. They can really utilise this green space that we have available to us. So we were hearing this back from the staff as anecdotal information, but what I really wanted to do was capture that information. So we do pre-course, post-course and post-course questionnaires with our staff, very much looking at a Kirkpatrick model to evaluate the outcomes of this programme. Some of those outcomes are regarding the education and the impact of the education. However, we really focus on what difference the environment has made. And our staff have been very much echoed the other research, saying that they felt they had a lot more time for connection and that it had increased their well-being. So really wanted to break that down for you and kind of show you what that looked like. So regarding the connection, a lot of the comments refer to how much better they were able to engage with very difficult conversations. They felt that they were able to connect with each other far better and that the interprofessional learning was much improved compared to using a hospital environment. One of my favourite quotes is, "It's what you can't hear that allows you to hear." And when I dug into that a bit more, it was you can't hear the beeps. You can't hear the bleeps going off. You know, it's actually really dedicated, quiet space to have these conversations. Huge amount of our feedback relates to well-being, with staff saying that they felt re-energised, they felt ready to go back to work, and they felt that it was as cathartic as it was educational. It's one of my other favourite quotes from the feedback. And they felt that they were really able to kind of focus on the healing that they needed just as much as what the patients need. Again, the calming restorative element was really heavily focused on. The Pelicans are local celebrities at Arundel Wetlands, and that it was really nice to have something less serious to focus on throughout the programme. And I called this brave advocacy because I think it was really important that we as a faculty had gone slightly out of the norm for where we provided this education. It was really important to use the literature, it was really important to use local resources, but it was really important as well to think, how do we do this differently? How do we come away from the magnolia classrooms that we're all quite used to, and how do we really focus on the staff well-being whilst also trying to deliver a curriculum? Going forward, I guess my questions to everybody is, how can education be delivered differently? If we forgot about classrooms overnight, would we redesign them as they are? A lot of our classrooms don't even have daylight. You know, when we've got staff for 5 days and we're dealing with really difficult things, how can we use a natural environment or a more interesting environment to really engage and look after these such pivotal team members? And how can we influence sustainability? I mean, when we use this venue, it does come with a cost. However, what we're doing, instead of paying a hotel or paying a private enterprise, what we're doing is actually, as a trust, is we're paying a local charity who invest in the maintenance and care of the wetlands environment. So from a cost and a regeneration point of view, it's a really, really productive relationship. So my key take-home messages are: an alternative environment can not only deliver an education programme, but it can also promote well-being and creativity and improve the learning and engagement. And the approach really needs to be, as much as it is educational, pastoral, and this partnership enables both. And that's the end of my talk. Has anyone got any questions or comments, please?
Sadie, thanks ever so much. Again, fab presentation to finish our or the last presentation we've got for our session today. And what's lovely is to, you know, going back around the loop of, you know, 6 months ago, you know, you were a winner on this, but actually what you've, you know, shown that you've done with that money, and it's innovative actually what you've done with this education program. I really like the fact that, you know, we're so traditional in our way, aren't we? Anyway, just let's get everyone in a classroom, and actually there's the added bonus of lighting, heating, all that goes with, doesn't it? That contributes clearly to the carbon footprint. But actually, what you've enabled people to do, apart from really enhancing their well-being, I'm sure through this education program, you've reconnected people with green space. I'm sure people will have gone back there, you know, just with their families. And it's a spin-off with all of this, isn't it? And it's the influence it has on individuals and that wider piece. And actually, you're right. Okay, there is a cost to this, but you're reinvesting into a green space here, aren't you? Which is brilliant. I'm going to have to go and visit this. Even I'm inspired to go and visit Arundel wetlands. There you go. Brilliant. So I'm going to bring in Lucy. Actually, thanks, Lucy.
Thank you, and thanks, Sadie, again for a brilliant talk. And I think you volunteered one of our first speakers now for next March with Jules's work. That sounds very exciting. Andrea and Adana and I are actually getting to visit Sadie and her visit the 3rd cohort next week.
It's cohort number 3, yeah.
Cohort number 3, so really excited about that, and certainly feedback. So just echo Andrea, just brilliant work, and the work that you're doing, it is trailblazing in terms of that site and where you're putting your education. And I'm really excited to come and see the program and come and meet you all. So thank you, just a massive thank you. And yes, I think our March future date for next March, we'd love to have Jules. That sounds brilliant.
Yeah, well, we could even, I was putting it out there, we could even deliver it from Arundel wetlands. I mean, what we're
I mean, that sounds amazing.
It does sound amazing. Whether or not the IT could live up to that, I'm not sure. Anyway, that's a whole different story. But no, really inspirational. So thank you, Sadie. Lovely to come back and to hear how you've got on. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Brilliant. Right. So that brings us to our final bit of our session today. Just a summary and close. Just again, a huge thank you to everybody for the presentations today. You know, I mean, we 6 months ago, as I said right at the start of this session, you know, we had a brilliant series of webinars throughout our week. To come back now 6 months and to have this webinar again is just really surpassed expectation. Just really good, fantastic quality presentations, actually, and very thought-provoking again, which is really what we want. But it's about what we're going to do after this, isn't it? And the call to action. So huge thanks to everyone. And I've been inspired, you know, again through what's been delivered today, and I'm sure everybody has. Is there anything, Katie, is there anything you wanted to, on your reflection from the session today, before I open it up?
Just really want to say, I think it's the ideal time because it's helped focus things again. And there's a couple of key standout comments that I think I'm going to carry with me. One of them was what our lovely Kate said, and that was about cost, care and carbon. That really does resonate. And I think, like I said to you, that is going to be something that we build in again to any projects that we're doing. How does that equate? Because too often we're keeping things separate, or people like me see it as separate. That's for that part, that's for that. And actually this all pulls it together. But there was another point that was made, and it was about the language that we use. And I loved that slide that had the different phrases on, because otherwise we do overcomplicate it. And if we make things too big, then we lose people along the way. It's like any change we're trying to make. We have to make it in a way, and we have to set it out in a way that's achievable. Anyone who knows me knows that one of my key things is about hope. We've got to have hope that we can do something. Otherwise, we lose the key workers. And I think the communication is key. Keep it as simple as we can. This is the difference that you can make, that I can make. That thing about how do you eat an elephant? You know, I'm starving actually, so I could eat the whole thing, but a bite at a time. And it's these little bits. If we can do these little bits, they contribute, making it real. So I think you've pulled everything back into focus beautifully for the next 6 months. Huge excitement about what we can carry on doing, and I'm really looking forward to the next 6 months and our next event. But thank you to everyone. Absolutely marvelous.
Wow. There you go. Couldn't end it any better. I think hope is it's mentioned in the chat actually, is really a key thing, call to action, but hope, and as Emma said, active hope is really vital. But I totally agree. But fantastic. Are there anything else anybody wants to say before we close at all? Just to look at, I suppose it's the next steps, isn't it? And what's next? If we just outline what we're planning to do, I think would be good. Emma, please come in.
First of all, this has been an incredible session. Sorry for having to drop out in the middle of that to find a space. We got kicked out of our room. But thank you so much to everyone. I'm absolutely energized and inspired by everyone's, everything that's being done. I think, again, another really exciting thing on the horizon is how within our national team, we're really connecting much closer now with our colleagues in the regions to sort of really move this work forward. And I'm hoping that in the next few weeks and months, there'll be a lot more opportunities for us to really work together and kind of make sure that we're providing that support for everyone to go off and do this in their organisation. So really looking from our side, we're really looking to support, for example, senior leaders to understand the importance of this agenda. So if they've got colleagues in their organisation that say, I want to go off and do a green team competition, or I'm really keen to go off and do this, we've really understood where it fits in with everything else we're doing. Because I think ultimately this is about, providing that high quality care to everyone that we connect with. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Emma. And that's great to hear, obviously, all the, what's planned, the initiatives as well. But just going back, it's been an incredible, just to echo actually, Emma, it really has been quite an inspirational session for sure. Absolutely lovely. I feel very privileged to have heard what we have heard today, and clearly all the great work that's going on. And there's lots of stuff planned as well, which is brilliant. Right. So what, Kate and Lucy, are we planning to do another 6-month webinar?
Yes, I think there will be another session starting in March, so similar to the original one, probably. Haven't quite got that yet, but
do a week of our sessions. Yeah, well, it'd be nice to do that, wouldn't it, actually? And again, we can do a bit of a recap on some of the stuff that's clearly been mentioned here, the projects and stuff, and obviously what's happening. I think would be wonderful, actually. Yeah, it's really nice. So great. Well, if there's no other comments and thoughts, thank you again for all your contributions. Hopefully that's given a little skip in your step today, and lifted you on some of the great stuff that's going on. But obviously, it's just a brilliant thank you to all of you actually for being here, but also all the work you're doing as well around this with your team. So thank you. Brilliant. Look forward to seeing everybody soon, and take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks ever so much. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, well, I thought actually Lucy and Kate would have stayed on, but they've gone. Never mind. That's all right. Well done, Kay. Well done.
Marvellous, love. See you later.
And I shall see you soon. Take care.
All right.
Bye. Bye. Bye.